Namaskar everybody and welcome to our Gita Satsang for today. So let us get started with the prayer, Prarthana. By the Guru's grace and the will of Shri Krishna, we have all assembled for this Gita Satsang. May we have their guidance to be able to learn and adopt the things which will help us to grow spiritually. Let us chant the shlokas. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnaya Vasudevaya Haraye Paramatmane Pranata Klesha Nashaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Namostu Te Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullara Vindaya Tapatra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Ramanujadaya Patram Jnana Vairagya Bhushanam Srimad Venkatanathaaryam Vande Vedanta Deshikam Yo Nityamachyuta Padambuja Yukma Rugma Vyamohatastaditarani Trinaya Mene Asmad Gurur Bhagavatosya Dayaika Sindhoho Ramanujasya Charanau Sharanam Prapadye. So with prayers at the lotus feet of the Acharyas, let us take up our shloka for today. So in the previous satsang, we had seen the 12th shloka, and today we are going to take up the 13th shloka. So Krishna is continuing to talk and explain about the Atma and the body, the Deha and Atma, and what are the differences between them. So Krishna is continuing to explain this to Arjuna. So in the 13th shloka, Krishna says, Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tata dehantara praptir dhirastatra na muhyati. So he says, just as the embodied soul continuously passes from childhood to youth to old age, similarly at the time of death, the soul passes into another body. The wise person is not deluded by this. So, here we need to understand, maybe by looking at this diagram, we can make out look at this picture. So, what he says is, what Krishna is explaining is that the Jivatma is there within the body. So, if you look at the first picture, which is here, of the fetus in the womb, so you can see the physical body with one small spark which is shown as the Atma. Then the baby is born. Then as a young infant, it grows, becomes a child. The child grows into a young man, into a young adult. Then old age comes. Then the person becomes very old and, stricken with disease and all that. Then finally the person is dead. The body dies. The Atma moves out and again goes on to find another life. So what Krishna is saying is, now you look at this picture which is on top. So different, you can see the same person is wearing different clothes. So later this will be explained in other shlokas of the Gita. But right now here what Krishna is trying to explain is that we have seen that the body goes through different stages. And like we said in the previous satsang, I was a baby, I was a child, I was a young person, I became an adult, I grew old. So in all of these, the actions are all changing, but what we call as the I is unchanging. So when we think of I, we are thinking of this body, but in reality, who is that I or what is that I? That I is the Atma actually. So when we are going through this process, so here we must assume that there is a question in Arjuna's mind. What is that unspoken question? He says that in the previous shloka we have seen how Krishna was explaining to Arjuna that the Atma is Nitya and the body is Anitya. Just 1 minute, please. Okay. So, as I was saying, in the previous shloka, we have seen how Krishna explained to Arjuna that the Atma is Nitya, Atma is eternal, and it is only the body which is subject to change. So, now Arjuna is asking that if Atma is Nitya, if Atma is eternal, then when we are saying birth, death, what is it that we mean by these words of birth and death? What is then going through this process of birth and death? And the answer to that, what Krishna is giving, is that he says, whenever there is some kind of a connection between the Atma and the body, then that is the time when we say birth has taken place. So if the Atma connects with the body, enters a body, and goes through the stages of life in that body, that we say is the process of birth and life. Now, when that Atma comes to an end of the connection with the body, when that Atma disconnects from the body, then that is what is called as death. So, what we understand from this, that this process of creation and destruction, which is a cyclical process, is only for the body. It is not for the Atma. So, that is why Krishna has been telling that Atma is Nitya and Sharira is Kshanika. It is temporary, right? So, here what we are seeing is that when this Atma moves through this one body, one individual was a child, that same individual became a youth, that same person became an adult, that same person grew old. So these are different stages in this body. So just as the Atma goes through stages in this body, so also the Atma goes through stages where it moves from one body to the next body to the next body. So Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna that you don't cry and lament over the fact that the child became a youth. You don't lament over the fact that the youth became an adult. You don't lament over the fact that the adult became old, isn't it? So every time children are very happy to become youngsters. Youngsters are very happy to finally become adults and have independence, right? Adulthood has certain challenges, and so old age can be a relaxation from those challenges. So at every stage, when we go through these stages and we move on further, we don't lament over that. We don't grieve over that. Similarly, what is happening is that one body, the Atma is leaving and going to the next body. Then, why are we grieving over that change when we don't grieve over the other changes that took place? So, Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna that just as you don't have grief when you go through different stages in one body, so also when the Atma, at the time of death, what is happening? That Atma is moving from one body to the next body. At the end of that Janma, it will again move to another body. So, just as we don't grieve over moving from childhood to youth to adulthood in one life, why should we grieve when there is movement from one body to the next body? And the surprising thing is that if you see in the Mahabharata, then all these things that Krishna is talking, Vasudeva, his father, had already talked about all this in his advice to Kamsa. I think we are all familiar with the whole event in the Mahabharata, where the prophecy was made to Kamsa, isn't it? We know how Kamsa's sister, cousin sister, was Devaki, and at the time of Devaki's marriage, Kamsa was very happy. He was so happy that he said, I will myself be the charioteer and drive Vasudeva and Devaki to their new house. So he was driving the chariot and going. At that time, there was an Akashvani that came. And that Akashvani said, Oh, you fool, what are you doing? This lady whom you are driving, her eighth son will be the cause of your death. He will be your killer. And Kamsa got so angry at that time and he was in such a panic that he immediately took his sword and he went to kill Devaki. He said, Only if this Devaki is alive, she will have a child, and only if that child is born, that child will kill me. So I will kill her now itself. Now, immediately at that point of time, Vasudeva, who was Devaki's husband, had stopped Kamsa and tried to drive sense into him. So while talking to Kamsa, Vasudeva had also advised all these points. So here now Krishna is talking to Arjuna and he is giving, of course, we don't, too much importance is not given to what Vasudeva had talked to Kamsa, because we generally don't go into details of that conversation. So here, however, in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord is explaining the same points in great detail. So he's trying to tell Arjuna that when you grieve over the passing of the soul from one body to the next body, you are actually behaving like an unwise person. So you should not grieve on this act. When this happens, you should not grieve. So from this shloka now, whatever Krishna has told, what can we try and understand? So again, we must realize that the importance point here is to constantly tell ourselves that when I say I am not the body, but I is the Atma. Now, many times people say that I have an Atma. It's actually wrong to say that, because I can't say that I have an Atma, because then the I and the Atma are different. The actual entity is the Atma, and the Atma has the body, isn't it? So I am a soul who is going through this body, rather than saying that I am a body which is also having a soul. I hope you are able to appreciate the difference between these two things. They express the same thought, but where is the emphasis on? That is what is important to us. If I say that I have a soul, then I'm thinking of myself as the body, and I say that one soul is also present, then the prominence, the pramukyate is for the body, not for the soul. But if I realize that I am the soul itself, and this soul is only going through this body, in the past it has gone through many other bodies, and in the future it is going to go through more bodies, until the point when I get moksha, when I get liberated from the cycle of birth and death. So we must realize that the what you say identity is of the soul and not for the body. Now, even modern science actually recognizes this, isn't it? Now, they have done so many studies and they have found that in our body, there are so many cells, there are so many tissues, there are so many organs. They keep regenerating themselves over time. Every few weeks, a few cells die and new cells are born. Every few months, there is some kind of change which happens in the tissues in our body. Every few years, the organs in our body keep changing. So, like this, that fact, so if you actually look at it, this body which I'm having, it is not even at the what you say physiological level, even at the microscopic level, it is not the same as it was on day one when I was born. So this body keeps continually changing. Similarly, just like there are changes in this body, there is a point when there is a change in the body itself. So this Janma was this body, next Janma is going to be another body. So we must learn to look at any loss of life with that kind of a spirit. So if we look at it that way, and in fact we realize that, see, if you think that, okay, the person died, and because of that we are grieving over the loss of that person. But in reality, if you look at it, now that Atma which has been released from this body is getting a new Deha at the end of that. So in the new body which it gets, it is going to start on a fresh slate. It is going to be having all, well working body parts. Everything is going to be fine in that body. So even if you look at it from that point of view, there is no reason for us to grieve. Now, because we are attached to the body of that individual and we can only recognize that body instead of looking at the Atma, we feel grief when somebody dies and leaves us in this world. So, who is the really wise person, or what is the wisdom that we should gain in our life? Accept that this constant change in the state of the body is something which is a reality. There is nothing we can do about it. So many times this is also important for us when we need to accept that our own health is going to keep changing. And as we grow older, it is going to not definitely improve. It is going to get worse, isn't it? So if we feel that, if our identification with our body, the Deha Sambandha is too strong, then We keep cribbing over the fact that our body is not what it was few years back. But if we accept that, okay, the body is like this, the body's nature is to change, then we will be able to accept the fact that our health is becoming less as we grow older. I'm not saying that if we have a disease or a disorder that we should just, say, okay, anyway, this body will die, just sit quietly, don't do anything about it. Not like that. Take whatever steps have to be taken, like follow whatever positive lifestyle changes you have to make, have a good diet, have a sattvic diet, do some form of exercise, take whatever medicines you need to take. All that we need to keep doing because we need to maintain this life. But what is the purpose of maintaining this life? Doing adhyatmic sadhana, doing some spiritual practice which will help me realize that the Atma is what is eternal and the body is only a madhyam which is there for the Atma to do sadhana and to get further towards God. So if we are wise, we will accept that this change in the state of the body is going to happen. And just like changes happen in one janma, there will be changes which cause loss of one janma and getting a new janma. So the truly wise person is one who understands this and accepts this. So if we focus again on the fact that I am the Atma, I am not the body, then I will be able to deal with whatever changes that happen in my life with a more, a stable mind. That is what we should try and understand. Now we move on to the next shloka, the 14th shloka. So continuing forward, Krishna is telling. Now, when Arjuna heard Krishna explain all this, then he says, okay, fine. I have, what do you say? I understand that, okay, these things are happening. But what happens is, I am able to see that the changes are happening in this life. So I feel that, okay, he was a youth, he was a child, he became a youth, he became a elder person, he became an old person. So because of that, I don't feel anything when I see them changing. But what happens after this life, I cannot see. I don't know what is going on. So maybe that is why I'm feeling bad. So then Krishna explains that what is the cause for us to have an idea like that? Why is it that we are able to perceive certain things and why we can't perceive the things which happen after this birth? So Krishna says, Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkhada agama painos nityam stam stitikshasva bharata. O son of Kunti, he's calling him Kaunteya. The contact between the senses and the sense object gives rise to fleeting perceptions of happiness and distress. These perceptions are not permanent. They come and go like the winter and summer seasons. O descendant of Bharata, one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. So here, a very important point Lord Krishna is mentioning. He says that whatever perception we have, whatever you are feeling as happiness, sorrow, distress, and all that, those perceptions, your viewing of all these things is fleeting. Fleeting means what? It is temporary. It is not permanent. Now, why this perception is coming to you? Because you have sense organs and there are certain sense objects. And between these two, there is a connection which is set up. And because of that, you are able to have these perceptions. But just because I feel something at this point of time, does it mean that that is going to be permanently there always? No. Just like as the year passes by, you have different seasons that come and go. You have winter season that comes, you have summer season that comes. Sometimes it rains, sometimes it is hot, sometimes it is cold. Does it mean that that same weather is going to continue all the time throughout the year? No, it will pass. So similarly, these um, perceptions that we have, these sentiments that we have of happiness and sorrow, they are also like the seasons. They will come, they will go. And if we are really a wise person, then what we will have learned, we will learn to tolerate those things without being disturbed. Now, most of the times in our life, what is happening? We are getting disturbed by all that goes on around us. So, if we want to learn to tolerate, we need to be able to stand apart from the incidents that are happening in our life. We need to detach ourselves from that incident, stand like an outside observer and see what is happening and see your own reaction to what is happening. and learn to tolerate those things. Accept that this is going to be like this only. That today it is like this situation will change. Today, tomorrow it is like that situation will also change. And that kind of a tolerance, when we learn, then without being disturbed, we will be able to go through our life in a smooth way. So Arjuna is saying that I can see all stages in this life, so I'm not affected by grief. But what happens after this life? I don't know that, and that's why I'm worried. Now, if I fight and I kill Drona and Bhishma, they are going to die. I don't know what is going to happen them after this birth, right? So Krishna is trying to explain to Arjuna that just because you cannot see something does not mean that it does not happen. Now Krishna is telling Arjuna that I am telling you that after this birth, they will get another birth. And why you are worried about that? Because definitely with the kind of good life that Drona and Bhishma have led, with their kind of punya that they have accumulated, they will only get a higher birth. They are not going to suffer the next birth. So why is it that you are worried about that? You have to trust me. So Krishna is asking Arjuna to trust him that I know what is going to happen. And I am telling you that there is no cause for worry. So an example that we can use, to understand that what do we mean by saying that I cannot see something, but that does not mean that it doesn't happen that way. Now I am in India. Here I have, let us say, a particular time for the sun rising and for the sun to set. Now after sunset, it becomes dark in India. Now for me in India, the sun has set at, let us say, 6:30 p.m. Does that mean that the sun has gone away totally? Does it mean that the sun is not there at all? No, there has been movement of the earth. And because of the movement of the earth, the part where I am, it appears like the sun has set. But suppose there is somebody who is on the exact opposite side, right? Now, for them, what will happen? It will be day for them. They will be able to see the sun. So the sun is visible on that side, but I can't see it. So just because I can't see the sun, does it mean that the sun is not there? No, it is there, but it is somewhere else. Similarly, we cannot see what happens to this Atma when it leaves this body. Does it mean that the Atma just disappears? No, it does not disappear. It takes another Janma, it will take another body. And I'm not able to see, but who can see? Krishna can see. So this is what Krishna is trying to explain to Arjuna. Now Arjuna has another thought that, okay, suppose I accept that, okay, they have an eternal nature. So Drona and Bhishma, even if they die here, they are going to get another good Janma later. Fine. That I can accept. But I am bothered about the fact that here in this Janma itself, when they are there, if I fight with them and I hit them with my arrows and all, they will suffer hurt. I can't bear to hurt their body like that. So that is also another thought which Arjuna has. So for that, Krishna is trying to explain to Arjuna that, see, what is the root cause of this suffering that you are undergoing? You are feeling that their body is going to get hurt. You are worried about hurting them. So your distress in this case, or even if you feel happy about anything, then in that case, why that happiness and distress is coming? Because there is contact between the sense organs and the objects. So until my sense organs are perceiving certain object, they will have a particular emotion which is being felt. If that connection is no longer there, then there is not going to be anything. So what is the solution then? To not get, to not let our sense organs get involved in the objects. So then we will be able to tolerate whatever is happening without getting disturbed. So what is this thing about the sense organs and the sense objects that is being talked about? So there are what are called as the Pancha Mahabhutas. These Pancha Mahabhutas are the elements, the five elements which make up anything and everything in this world. Then there are the qualities that they have, the Pancha Tan Matra they are called as. And we have the Pancha Indriyas, the five Indriyas, which help us to experience those Tanmatras which arise from the Mahabhutas. So Prithvi, Aap, Tejas, Ayu, and Vayu, and Akash. So these are the five elements, the Pancha Mahabhuta. Now each of them has a corresponding Tanmatra, a particular property or the quality that they have. So Prithvi is for Gandha. Gandha is smell. Aap, water element, is for rasa or taste. Tejas, which is the fire element, that has to do with rupa, with vision. Vayu or wind has to do with sparsha, the sense of touch. And akasha, ether, is the tanmatra related to that is that of sound, shabda. So Prithvi, Aap, Tej, Vayu and Akash are the Panchamahabhutas. The corresponding tanmatras are there. And how do I experience those tanmatras? With my nose, I get the smell. With my tongue, I get the taste. With my eyes, I see the form. With my skin, I'm able to feel the touch. And with my ear, I'm able to hear. So what is happening here? These indriyas connect with objects which are made up of Panchamahabhuta. And because of that, these sensations are felt. These tanmatras, these we are able to experience. So, just as the seasons keep changing, summer comes, winter comes, it is not permanent. Similarly, even in the ability to judge all these things, there is a constant change. Now, what happens is we get attached to one particular quality, one particular person, one particular sentiment we develop, and we keep hanging on to that. So, that is not going to be permanent either. That person will change, that situation will change. So, when everything is going to change, if I'm going to hang on to something and say, no, this has to be permanent, how realistic is that? Is it going to be likely that it will ever remain permanent like that? No. So, who is the wise person now? The person who learns to tolerate everything that is happening with a lot of patience without feeling hurt. So, what is it that we have to learn? What is the message for us from this from this shloka? That whenever some situation arises, whether it is unpleasant or it is pleasant, but actually, when things are pleasant, we don't bother, isn't it, about it? We get carried away in the flow of the joy. But when something unpleasant happens, we feel a lot of discomfort. So, what is the way to deal with that? Try to keep your mind stable. Try to accept that this too shall pass. This is also not permanent. Of course, we must remember this when things are going good for us also. In a pleasant, in a happy situation also, we need to realize that this too shall pass and tomorrow some unpleasant thing is going to come. But in the unpleasant thing, we need to realize that, okay, this also will pass away. Tomorrow, things are going to be different. So, this kind of an awareness we need to cultivate. Most of our problems arise because we think that if something is good for me, I want it to always remain good for me in that same way. If something is bad for me, I am worrying and fretting over the fact that, oh, this is going to be like this only throughout my life. But as Krishna has told, the summer comes, the winter comes, the summer comes, winter comes, it keeps changing. So, similarly, whatever is happening in my life is not permanent either. It is going to go on changing. So, if I want to be unaffected by all that, then what I have to do? I have to increase my capacity to tolerate whatever is unpleasant and not get affected by what is happening. Realizing that nothing in the world is permanent, everything is subject to destruction. Not even my emotions can be permanent. Today I feel happy about something. Tomorrow that same thing gives me sadness, isn't it? So we have seen this so often. We think that if we get married and have a good family life, we will be happy. But later, when people in that family start not behaving as per your expectation, you start feeling sorrow. So the same thing which gave you joy gives you unhappiness. You think you like to eat something. You like a particular sweet dish. You eat some of it. You will feel happy. But if you eat a lot of it, what is going to happen? It is going to cause you distress. So nothing in the world, including our emotions, are permanent. And this is what we can use as a tool. This realization that nothing is permanent, everything will change, and the unpleasant things will also pass. We can use this as a tool to overcome whatever hurt we are feeling because of our unmet expectations. We must teach ourselves to go through situations without expecting a particular outcome. Whenever something has to be done, whenever something is going to happen, so many times we enter that situation thinking that, okay, it should be like this. And if it is like this, then I'm going to be happy about it. And if it is not like this, then I'm going to be sad about it, isn't it? Many times we heighten everything. We become so anxious that what if it doesn't go this way? What if something happens like that? And people get into so much of anxiety over that. And all that is just a waste of our emotion. Instead, we must learn to accept that things are going to be the way they will be. And there's nothing that I can do about it. So let me just spend my energy in chanting God's name. Let me just think and pray to God and say that whatever comes, give me the ability to digest that. Whatever comes, give me the strength to face that. Let me learn to stay detached from what is happening in my life. Let me learn to accept everything as your prasada. So if we accept with that kind of an attitude, that whatever is happening in my life is from God, and I will happily go through this, right? That kind of a bhava, that kind of an attitude will make it very easy for me to overcome this, being caught up in this chakra, in this constant cycle, this ups and downs of our life, where our emotions keep going through these, phases of happiness, distress, joy, sorrow, like that. So we can avoid that by trying to understand that nothing is permanent. It is only because my sense organs are attaching to a certain object that I'm having this kind of an emotion. So that is what Krishna has tried to explain to Arjuna in the two shlokas that we saw today. So just to sum up, the first shloka that we saw, the 13th shloka, talked about the different stages. Just as the embodied soul goes from childhood to youth to old age, similarly, after death, the soul passes from this body to that body. So don't get deluded. It is just a passing from one phase to another phase. That is what Krishna first told Arjuna. And then in the next shloka, he says that it is because of this contact between the sense and the sense objects that you are feeling all this perception of happiness and distress. But these perceptions are temporary, they will come and go, and you must learn to tolerate them without getting disturbed by what is happening. So let us pray that Krishna will bless us also to be able to understand these things, and at some level at least try to start adopting these steps so that we can grow and become more undisturbed in our life. So let us now stop here and we will offer Kritagnyata. Any questions anybody has, we can take it up in the next satsang, and we will meet again next Tuesday. So let us offer Kritagnyata, not Tuesday, sorry, Thursday. Let us offer Kritagnyata now. Let us offer gratitude at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna and Guru for inspiring us to start and join this satsang. And let us pray for their blessings and grace to always be on us. Namaskar. Thank you everybody for joining in, and we will meet again next Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you, Ansuya ji.
Thank you. Namaste.